All right, starting this one off with a lot to cover here. So I'm going to start this with cluster bombs. What is a cluster bomb? That's what I wanted to know. Let's go and look at this, see what we can find.
We recognize that cluster munitions create a risk of civilian harm from unexploded ordnance. This is why we've deferred the decision for as long as we could.
Cluster bombs can be dropped from an aircraft. They open in midair, dispensing hundreds of submunitions or bomblets over an area roughly the size of a football field, and causing immense disruption.
Blood on their hands. Well, so that is the cluster bomb. Because I really did not know what a cluster bomb was, the impact, etc., etc. Then I heard Trump talking about cluster bombs. Then I heard RFK talking about it. And of course, a lot of that was because of what Joe Biden has recently done regarding these cluster bombs, sending them to the Ukrainians in Ukraine, sending not really the Ukrainians, but you know what I mean, sending them to Ukraine because we don't have anything else to send them. We ran out of bombs. We're running out of munitions, right? We're supposed to do this whole war is to get rid of Putin and to starve out Putin and starve out Russia, which I don't believe is ever going to happen here. But it looks like the opposite, the complete opposite is happening here. And I hear a lot, not from the common sense person, but I do hear a lot from a lot of politicians, aside, not RFK, not Trump, not some others, but you hear it a lot that they say that Russia's invasion was unprovoked. Kennedy and Trump have both laid out the reasons why that is absolute garbage. This war was provoked. It definitely was. They wanted Putin to go in there. And perhaps they needed Putin to go in there because we're coming up on an election year and they want a wartime president. This is something we would normally see from the Republican side, I think, and we're seeing it from the quote unquote Democrat side. And it's really nice to know that more and more people are realizing these two parties are just the same, right? We've kind of known that, but also that there are good people on both sides of these parties, powerful people, people with a lot of influence over their constituents, a lot of influence over people within their party, and a lot of influence over just the common American person like myself, right? So that's another thing that I really like about the two candidates, the two top what I see as the two top candidates in the 2024 presidential race. You have RFK Jr. on the Democrat side, and you have Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, on the Republican side. And there's a lot of other good people in there too that are running that I generally like. But those are really the top two people. And I was watching Mike Pence's Turning Point America Turning Point Action conference this over the weekend with Tucker Carlson, and I'm just watching Mike Pence like, dude, you pretty much, if you ever had any shot, which I don't believe he ever did, he pretty much blew it there. So that's like a 20-minute conversation with Tucker Carlson and Mike Pence. Maybe I'll play some of that here tonight. I'm not sure. It just shows how how gone Pence is, and And President Trump has recently, there was an Epic News article. I don't know if I can find it. Maybe hopefully I can find it here. But it talks about the President Trump finally addresses the mistakes he made in his first term, right? Because some people may consider he's running for his third term here, against the occupied Biden administration, who is not supposed to really be in there. That's an argument to be made, and there's a lot of data to back that up. And the censorship is what is it's still running rampant, but it is losing the war. I mean, it's only a matter of time before a lot of the stuff comes out about 2020 and about COVID and all that, and it's already coming out. It's seeping out, and it's going to continue to. And our kids are gonna see it too. Be like, wow, okay, you guys were on the right path, and that's what really matters. Not being right, but speaking truth and recognizing truth. And it's going to take some guts for a lot of people to admit that they were wrong about 2020, to admit that they were wrong about COVID. And those people know who they are. And that's it. And so does God. So beyond that, well, we will move on a little bit here because I got a few more videos. This is a really cool one here. This is from Team Kennedy. And this one is about 3 minutes long. This is one of the recent ones from Team Kennedy. This was posted 3 days ago, and the actual date was July 14th. So I'm going to play this. This is called Reconnect. And in the description of the video, it says, what if we overcame our separation from nature? What if we saw ourselves as a part of all things? What if we fostered a deeper connection with the divine? That means God. I'm going to play this here.
If we want to meet our obligation as a generation, as a civilization, as a nation, which is to create communities for our children.
No audio. It's odd. Can't hear the audio.
That provide them with the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us. We've got to start by protecting our environmental infrastructure, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the wildlife, the fisheries.
It's going to stop sharing that. If I moved it over my other screen here. Reclaim the audio. Let's see what this does. Oh, come on. All right. Technical difficulties. I try to have everything all queued up and ready, but it doesn't always work out. Let me see if this one will work. This one works. Find one that works. Then that's all that matters. All right, so I am going to kill that noise. And let's go back. Play this. This is about a 3-minute clip, as I stated before. Reconnect. All right, take two. Take two.
If we want to meet our obligation as a generation, as a civilization, as a nation, which is to create communities for our children that provide them with the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us, we've got to start by protecting our environmental infrastructure, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the wildlife, the fisheries, the public lands, those things that are not reducible to private property, but by their nature are the property of all of us, the commons, the commonwealth, the landscapes, the waterways that connect us to the 10,000 generations of human beings that lived before there were laptops, and that ultimately connect us to God. And God talks to human beings through many vectors, through each other, through organized religion, through the great books of those religions, through wise people, through art and music and literature and poetry, but nowhere with such detail and grace and color and joy is through creation. And when we destroy a species, when we destroy a special place, we're diminishing our capacity to sense the divine, understand who God is, and what our own potential is as human beings. Father Martin once told me that the definition of sin is an injury to another human being or to God, to our relationship with God. And my children are going to grow up in a world where they will never see the kind of explosions of color and butterflies that I saw every time I walked into my garden. Because 80 or 90% of the butterflies are gone, the flying insects. They'll never hear the songbirds that I heard. They're not going to see that in their lifetime. They're unaware of it. And it's like God is a tapestry and he's talking to us from all of these different vectors, and we're pulling threads out of that capacity. And it is such a crime against our children. And I think we deserve a president in this country who cares about these things and who talks about these things to the American people.
Beautiful.
The best way to burn fat and get in
Amazing.
shape. It's not keto.
Just amazing. Simply amazing. Sorry, no, you can't see me here. There we go. Oof, powerful. Good videos, good stuff there. I really am enjoying just about anything that I see on RFK's Team Kennedy, the YouTube channel. There's a few other good ones that he's got. He gets into one about the anti-Semitism, and then the New York Post article. I'll probably play that one because that's about 3 minutes, 34 seconds. So that's a good one. But yeah, if that doesn't get you fired up, I'm not sure what will. So a few things I want to talk about. I'm a little cautious to even go here, but I think it's okay. I think it's all right. So what we will do is I'm going to then jump over here. Now, the article is about 7 minutes long, and there's an article voiceover, which I absolutely love, which means that we can play this. So this is called Media Twists RFK's Remark at NY Press Event. This is by MD Peter McCullough, MD. And he is a cardiologist, an internist, and scientist, co-author with John Leake of The Courage to Face COVID-19, Preventing Hospitalization and Death While Battling Biopharmaceutical Complex. Wow, that's interesting. We have to check that book and add that to my stuff. Okay, so this is about 7 minutes long. A lot of good stuff in here. I'm really curious. This is what I'm going to use for the book here. A lot of this stuff where I want to get RFK's talk here. But you know what? I'm just going to play it. Let's just play this thing. Let's roll.
Media twists RFK's remark at New York press event. Big pounce on candidates' talk about COVID-19 susceptibility variation. By John Leake. The media is afire with screaming headlines and chatter about RFK Jr. allegedly floating an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about COVID-19 at a recent press event in New York. The presidential candidate's allegedly outrageous remarks were captured in video, apparently shot clandestinely, of him sitting at a dining table talking to his companions about the frequently observed and documented fact that some ethnic groups appear to be more susceptible to severe COVID-19 illness than others. So what exactly did RFK Jr. say? We need to talk about bioweapons. We have spent hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19 COVID-19 there is an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are, because of the genetic structure, the genetic differentials among different races of the receptors and of the ACE2 receptors, COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and Black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. We don't know if it was deliberately targeted or not, but there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact of that. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons, and we are developing ethnic bioweapons. That's what all of these labs in the Ukraine are about. They are collecting Russian DNA so that we can target people by race. End of quote. What are we to make of this statement? Let's start with his assertion that the United States and China are investing in developing ethnically targeted bioweapons. A quick search of the literature revealed several recent reports in which American and Chinese officials accuse each other of developing racially targeted bioweapons. And a few headlines. The coming threat of a genetically engineered ethnic bioweapon in the National Review, April 10th, 2023. Pentagon making race-specific bioweapons to target citizens, China says, in Newsweek, May 11th, 2023. Going back a few years, could you make a genetically targeted weapon? The Guardian, 28th October 2004. The Guardian piece cites a report issued by the Biotechnology Weapons and Humanity 2 conference, in which the British Medical Association expressed the following renewed concern. Quote, the BMA, which dismissed the idea of genetic weapons in a 1999 report, has lifted its new concerns from the work of a German group called the Sunshine Project. It looked at how mutations in our genome called single nucleotide polymorphisms differ between specific ethnic groups and concluded genome data and public databases revealed that hundreds, possibly thousands of target sequences for ethnic specific weapons do exist. It appears that ethnic specific biological weapons may indeed become possible in the near future. End of quote. And what are we to make of RFK Jr.'s second claim about genetic differentials among different races of the receptors of the ACE2 receptors? A quick Google search for ethnic susceptibility to COVID-19 ACE2 receptor yielded 504,000 results. At the top of the list was the 2022 paper, SARS-CoV-2 Susceptibility and ACE2 Gene Variations Within Diverse Ethnic Backgrounds. An augmented Google search for ethnic susceptibility to COVID-19, ACE2, Ashkenazi Jews yielded 92,500 results. At the top of the results was a series of academic papers about variation of DNA polymorphisms in ACE2 and TMPRSS2, and how these variations seem to render some ethnic groups more or less susceptible to COVID-19, with Ashkenazi Jews apparently being less susceptible. If RFK Jr. can be fairly criticized for any of his remarks, it is that some of his statements could be interpreted as jumping to conclusions. To me, what is most compelling and charming about RFK Jr. is his immense curiosity about the world and his love of conversing about it. Like all great conversationalists, he is frequently inclined to wander into domains of emerging knowledge in which we are in the process of investigating new leads and making fresh discoveries, without having yet reached the point of complete understanding. If his interlocutors are intelligent and sympathetic to the fact that he is acting in the capacity of an investigator following new leads and not presuming to possess full knowledge of the subject, then he is safe with such expositions. However, given that he may at any given time be in the presence of a hidden viper poised to strike him for every stumble and misstep, then he is well advised to be more careful about what he speaks about. As a presidential candidate, as distinct from an investigative author, it would probably suit him to get out of the weeds of biotechnical matters and stay focused on major policy issues. Media twists RFK's remark at New
I'm
York
gonna
press
stop
event.
it right there.
Big pounce
And
on.
that is good. There are a few things that I think I would definitely disagree with here. One of the things may actually be with what RFK Jr. says. The other is what the author says. First of all, I guess I'll stick to what the author says. But whatever Kennedy says in private, I don't think he's going to have a problem saying it in public. And I think that's what makes him stand out. I think that's what we like about him is that, whether there's a hidden camera somewhere or somebody who's recording what he is saying in private should match what he is saying in public. So I did want to make that note. The other note is something that RFK Jr. actually said here, which I found kind of laughable here. I mean, when you think about this, where the Chinese, a weapon being racially targeted, it's an interesting thing, and it's way above my knowledge. Definitely, I have no idea about this stuff, but excuse my ignorance on this, but here to understand this. But I mean, it goes back to, well, what is race, right? If we all came from one man, from one woman, then what is race? And the DNA structure, you have to understand all of these things. I have to understand these before the stuff that they're talking about makes sense. So again, I'm just thinking out loud and thinking about, from my very limited, almost zero knowledge of this type of topic about racially targeted bioweapons. One of the things that I did find a little bit laughable is where he says the people for the COVID-19, the people who are the most immune are a certain type of Jewish people, but the Chinese. Now, I just find that hard to believe. I mean, you have to look at the numbers, and they're looking at stats. RFK is a guy who's looking at numbers. He's looking at stats. He's looking at the science. He's dug deep into this stuff because he litigates against this stuff. So I'm not trying to act like I know, more than what he's saying. I definitely don't. But I'm going to ask the questions. And they may be stupid questions, but I'm going to ask them because that's just how it is. We live in the greatest country ever, so we should be able to ask those questions and not feel bad about that, and not get offended when people correct you, when people try to point it out that, look, Greg, you have no idea what you're talking about, because maybe I don't. But what I find fascinating is that I believe that the COVID, I don't believe the numbers in China, the COVID numbers in China. Let me put it like that. I don't buy the COVID numbers in China. So if we're going by the numbers of what they put out, that would make sense at some level, I guess, because if you look at China's COVID numbers and China's COVID death numbers, they're like they're like super low, almost laughable, to the point where it's like, come on, there is no way these numbers can be accurate. They're obviously hiding numbers. That's my thought on it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks like that. So it's hard for me to say, well, they're not targeting the COVID-19 doesn't target the Chinese, when I think it started there in China. And and the way that they did, the way that they quarantined, et cetera, the way that they hid those numbers, I mean, their numbers should be higher than our numbers. They did lockdowns too. They did everything that we did to the more extreme. You saw the videos of them pulling people out of their houses and forcing the vaccinations and forcing things on to these people. Just doing all of these things that we did here too. And look at our numbers, they were really high. So I understand the point that he's making. I just find that hard to believe that the Chinese are the most immune to COVID-19. I could be wrong. I just found that very interesting. But he also says we don't know if it was deliberately targeted or not. But there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic differential impact of that. And again, those papers are probably based on the low numbers coming out of China. So from that, you can't really deny that. But if the virus started in China, if COVID-19 started in China, you would expect the numbers would be a lot higher than just about any other place, at least the early numbers. And they weren't, because they were hiding it. China was hiding all of those numbers. So those are really the only two things that I, was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But the thing that I really like that he talks about is he's talking about the labs in Ukraine. This is something that I've heard from a lot of people. The Ukraine labs, did COVID-19 come from that? What are they doing in these Ukraine labs? What is there a tie between what happened back in 2020 with COVID-19 and these Ukraine labs here? So it's pretty interesting. So that's all I had on that one, way over my head, but it's a great article if you have not read it. You can also find it on Kennedy24.com/news-coverage. And it is the most recent article right now. Courageous Discord, July 15th. You'll find it there. Just click on that. Again, the name of the article, Media Twists RFK's Remarks at NY Press Event. So, but then it says, in the actual article, it says that this happened while they were sitting at a table, at a dining table or something like that. So he's talking to his companions about the frequently observed and documented fact that some ethnic groups appear to be more susceptible to severe COVID-19 illness than others. Fascinating. It's a fascinating thing. And so we know how the media is going to twist it and everything. They do the same thing with Trump. We see it happen over and over and over again. And it's going to continue to happen, especially the more RFK becomes a threat. And he is the biggest threat to Joe Biden running for a second time. I'm not going to say running for a second term, but running for a second time. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's go and check and see what Mr. Trump is doing. Because Donald Trump, what has he got going? So he was talking about the cluster bomb thing too. And Trump says he can fix Washington now because he got a PhD in learning about the people. Trump, the great silent majority, is rising. Trump calls on young patriots to propel America to glorious new heights. There's a memo, State of the Race, questions you should be raising. Breaking, Trump on fire at Turning Point Action. That's a great speech, by the way. It's about almost 2 hours. Biden's America is ruled by censors, perverts, criminals, and thugs, but we will take back our country. Trump pulled in more than $35 million in the second quarter. All that's July 17th. Another one from July 17th. Trump team rakes in over $35 million during second quarter fundraising. Trump wins Turning Point straw poll, protecting the students from the radical left. Trump takes aim at EV industry during speech to Michigan Republicans. Truth from President Trump, Donald J. Trump. Is this the one? I'm trying to find the one where he talks about the cluster bombs, but statement, probably July 14th, statement by President Donald J. Trump. I think this is it. Yes, this is it here. And the text is so tiny. Probably can't even see that. Let me help your Let me help your eyes here. This is from July 14th. President Trump says Joe Biden's decision to mobilize reserve forces proves that his reckless escalation in Ukraine is straining the U.S. military to the point of disaster. Last week, Biden shockingly admitted that our arsenals are so badly depleted that the United States is running out of ammunition. Now we see the ranks are growing so thin that reserve troops are being forced to support Biden's calamitous policy in Europe, while our own borders remain undefended. Joe Biden can't even walk up the steps of Air Force One without tripping. The last thing this incompetent administration should be doing is pushing us further towards World War III. Yet Biden has proclaimed that he will continue sending American treasure and weaponry to fuel endless war in Ukraine for, quote, as long as it takes, end quote. When I am re-elected, says Trump, it will take 24 hours. This conflict must end. Not one American mother or father wants to send their child to die in Eastern Europe. We must have peace. As president, I will again rebuild America's military and restore the readiness and deterrence that Joe Biden has so dangerously squandered. And I will return to a foreign policy that puts America first so that we can once again have peace through strength. Peace through strength is another thing that the former vice president Mike Pence was talking about. And it's just, that guy is just all over the place. It's bad. It's really bad. But going back, I should have probably stayed on topic with RFK, because going back to, so I was way off topic here. Here we go. There's another thing. I won't go back to the cluster bombs, but I really want to go back to the way that the New York Post twisted what RFK said. But first, this is what RFK said on July 14th about those cluster bombs. This isn't the first time the U.S. has deployed cluster bombs. We used them against Serbia in 1999. Quote, in a street leading from the market, dismembered bodies were strewn among carrots and other vegetables and pools of blood. That's from an article from The Nation to Change. Now, here is the actual, you can read this one. And this is what RK said. President Biden just called upon 3,000 reservists to augment U.S. troops in Europe as part of, quote, Operation Atlantic Resolve. I want people to understand what the troop mobilization is about. It's about preparing for a ground war with Russia. That's where it's going, the ground war. Because then you get these 3,000 people there, similar to how, I wasn't even sharing screen. Sorry about that. But you get these 3,000 people there, similar to what they were trying to get John F. Kennedy involved in with Vietnam. Here we're seeing kind of the same thing on a much larger scale. Going to war, trying to get President John F. Kennedy to go to war in Vietnam, comparing that to trying to get Biden, or trying to get the USA, I should say, to go to war with Russia. Very, very different. But let's say that the Biden administration and the neocons and these evil people, the swamp creatures, let's say they are successful at getting a war, an official war going with Russia. Would they cancel the 2024 presidential debates, the 2024 presidential election? If Trump when Trump wins, is it going to be more that the Russians made all of this happen? He's working with the Russians. That's why he can get this thing done so quickly, et cetera, et cetera. The propaganda is just going to be endless. And the preparations by the evil people are definitely being made. But this article is, this is where we start here. They want the ground war. And the only way to get that is to get our reservists, to get our U.S. soldiers over there and get them killed. Because the American people, American public will not stand for that. They're not going to put up with that. And so then it becomes a whole different ball game. Then it's no longer Ukraine and Russia. Then it's USA and Russia. Then we're talking about a draft in the USA. Then we're talking about protests, real protests, the likes of which people have not seen here in this country. I mean, that is just going to be a big, big way to divide and conquer the greatest country ever, the United States. So this is what it's come to, and hopefully, if it's God's will, we'll get Trump back in there and finish the job, finish the real job of making America great again. It's all in God's hands in the end. Nothing happens, and nothing is allowed without God making all of this stuff happen for whatever reasons. So we'll see where all of this goes. But there is another clip that I did want to play here. And this is from back to Kennedy's website, Team Kennedy, because this relates to what we were talking about with the New York Post article. So this is a 3-minute clip. The full interview, it looks like, it's about 34 minutes. That's also up on Team Kennedy. I'm not going to play that full 34-minute, but this is a great clip here. Let me see if I can play this here. So this is Rabbi Shmuley. Make this bigger, and let's watch.
I don't answer the phone on the Sabbath. I saw that my phone was exploding with messages, ding, ding, ding over the Sabbath. I saw that the reason I was getting these messages is that my good friend, Robert Kennedy Jr., was quoted by various publications as allegedly saying the COVID-19 vaccine was a bioweapon. And I saw that Jewish groups started condemning him as an anti-Semite yet again. Now, I know Bobby Kennedy. I know he's not an anti-Semite. So here you are speaking at a dinner, and you say that I watched the video that there's a manufacturing of bioweapons going on, and COVID-19, according to a study, I think in the Cleveland Clinic, affected Ashkenazi Jews less and the Chinese less.
Let me just put it in context. We were talking in the context of the threat of these billions of dollars in bioweapons development that is now going on in the largest countries of the world, particularly the United States, China, and Russia, and the need to regulate that, the need to resuscitate the bioweapons charter, which we signed in 1973, and the Geneva Convention that forbade a lot of that research earlier on. And for a variety of historical reasons, those are no longer complied with by these nations. Because of synthetic biology and genetic manipulation, there's a whole new retinue and generation of bioweapons. Among the worst of those are bioweapons that target ethnicities. And we all know that is horrifically dangerous because throughout history, certain powerful people have tried to destroy races of certain ethnicities, and these bioweapons will actually give them the power to do that. So they have to be controlled. No other presidential candidate is talking about that. During that discussion, I pointed to the fact that these scientists from the Cleveland Clinic, writing in one of the highest gravitas journals in the world, published a study that showed that certain ethnicities were more susceptible to COVID-19 and certain ethnicities were less susceptible to it. Among the least susceptible were ethnic Chinese. There were also Finns are the least of all people from Finland. And on that list are also Ashkenazi Jews. The most susceptible were people of African descent and Caucasians. This is not a controversial study. Nobody has suggested that these were deliberately engineered changes. And I certainly don't believe that they were deliberately engineered, but what they are is kind of a proof of concept that you can develop bioweapons that will attack certain ethnicities, and this should be terrifying to all of us. And we really need this to be an object of discussion. What was done to me, during this, and I'm not complaining because, I don't complain, but it's an interesting phenomenon that I was tarred in a way that we call targeted propaganda. For many, many years, I've been censored on the issues that I want to talk about. This is a new kind of censorship. Now everybody has to let me talk because I'm running for president. There's a new kind of censorship called targeted propaganda that is designed to make me look unpalatable, unhinged, crazy, a crank, a conspiracy theorist. And it's something that all of us really need to combat because we need, as you say, Rabbi Shmuley, we need an open, congenial, respectful discussion in this country. We need to be able to talk about issues without being tarred, without being subject to marginalization, vilification. We need to actually have a conversation, and that conversation has to begin with an agreed upon reality. And usually that means when it comes to the scientific realm, peer-reviewed science. So that study is important. It's important to talk about, and we should not be tarred for talking about it.
That's right. Very good. Very good there. So that was another great one by RFK. So let's go now to Truth Social, and we'll take a look there. What is happening over here on Truth Social, and I will try to maximize this. We have these big screens. This is what happens. You shrink everything down. More going after Ron DeSantis, right? But I really want to find the article, and I don't know if Trump would even retweet it, but I saw it come across my stream for the Epic Times, which I believe is the greatest, just the greatest here. What's this?
Ron DeSantis was struggling big time in his primary race for governor of Florida. Polls revealed DeSantis was failing so bad, he was losing by a staggering 17 points. Then DeSantis was saved by the endorsement of President Trump. Trump's support was so powerful. Just 2 days after the endorsement, DeSantis took a commanding lead, and it propelled him to being elected governor.
I'd like to thank our president for standing by me when it wasn't necessarily the smart thing to do.
You're welcome, Ron. Unfortunately, instead of being grateful, DeSantis is now attacking the very man who saved his career. Isn't it time DeSantis remembers how he got to where he is?
Make America great again. Big league. So good. Build the wall. Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
Truth is, there's only one person who can make America great again.
Wow. Isn't that something? How do I cancel that? Great stuff there. Great stuff. Let me see if I can find, hopefully it's here. There's something from Carrie Lake. She may be another runner. Okay, there's that. It's got to be here. I mean, because Trump doesn't talk much about what he got wrong, what he should have done, or what, so I'm surprised it's so hard to find. He can fix Washington. Yeah, we know that. Greatest silent majority. There's Roger Stone, that guy. Don't trust that guy for anything. That's strange. Silent majority. I may have to go and look at let's see. What's dangerous? Oh, another Fox News article. Interesting. What's that one about? Let's see where this goes.
Communist China wants to become the #1 superpower, overtaking the United States. We know this. What can be done about it? Give us your sense of the policy and the response that should be happening toward Communist China.
So I know President Xi better than I know you, which is pretty good.
Really?
Okay, yeah, I really think so. So I know him very well. I've dealt with him many times. He came up Mar-a-Lago, as you know. He stayed.
Well, he's not a friend of the United States, I don't think.
No, he doesn't hate the United States, but he loves China. He wants to take everything away from the United States. He wants to not destroy the United States. He just wants everything. You got to understand, this is a man who's at the top of his game. He's dealing with an incompetent person in Joe Biden. He's never seen anything like it. And I was very tough on China. I tariffed them to a level 25 and 50% everything. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars. By the way, the happiest person in the world was President Xi. And I got along with him great, but he is all for China. He doesn't care anything about our country. And I'll tell you this, he doesn't believe when he meets with Joe Biden, he thinks it's a joke. He can't believe, he sees this guy. If you would see President Xi, you can't duplicate him in Hollywood. There's nobody in Hollywood could play the role. These people, these leaders are at the top of their game. These are smart people, including Macron of France. I could go through the whole list of people, including Putin. Now, Putin's been wounded, probably. Let's see how it all turns out. It's not over. I mean, one way or the other. But these people are sharp, tough, and generally vicious. They're vicious. and they're at the top of their game. We have a man that has no clue what's happening. It's the most dangerous time in the history of our country.
So what should be the
Ukraine would have
response?
never
What
happened if
should
I
be
was
the
president. None of this stuff would have happened. You wouldn't have inflation, for one thing. But going back to that, Ukraine would have never happened. Taiwan, which will at some point happen under this group, would never have happened. You never heard these things being talked about. I knew about them because I'd be with President Xi. I'd talk, and he likes Taiwan a lot. And Putin liked Ukraine a lot. It was the apple of his eye. But he never made a move with me because he knew he couldn't do it. Remember this also with Putin. You know, they like to say, oh, Trump was softer. I was tougher on Russia than anybody in history with the sanctions and everything else.
You said you could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
Yes, I
How
did.
would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well. I felt he was very honorable because when they asked him about the perfect phone call that I made, he said it was indeed perfect. He said it was, he didn't even know what they were talking about. He could have grandstanded, oh, I felt threatened.
Well, that's not going to be enough for Putin to stop bombing
No,
Ukraine.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well, even better. And I had a good relationship, very good with both of them. I would tell Zelensky, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give them more than they ever got if we have to. I will have the deal done in one day. One day.
Now, China apparently is setting up this spy center in
Yeah,
Cuba,
it's not
100
even
miles away from
believable.
Florida.
No.
So what is the answer? What should the response be to communist China?
They will be closed down within, I don't want to say 24 hours, but very quickly. They will.
You mean the
not-
spy center in Cuba?
They can't have, look, Spy Center is really bad. That's just the beginning. They're going to end up building military islands. You know, in opposite Japan, they said, yes, we're building a residential housing development. It turned out to be one of the world's largest military bases. Japan should have watched that. And I predicted, I said, there's no way. You know why? I looked at a 15,000-foot runway they were building. A Gulfstream doesn't need a 15,000-foot runway, okay? I looked at this plan. I said, look at the runway. That's for military fighter jets. That's for military planes. That has nothing to do with private. They said they were building a residential development on this island. Turns out to be a military base. That's what they do. You know, one of the things in Afghanistan that's so sad, we should have never left Bagram. We should have kept it because Bagram is one of the largest military bases in the world. Cost us billions of dollars to build many years ago. And forget about Afghanistan. You don't want it for that. You want it because it's 1 hour away from where China is building their nuclear weapons, Bagram. And they left at the dark of night.
Well, China has been much more aggressive in these last 2 years. We know that. Surveillance balloons, a spy balloon that traveled across
You know, they
the
weren't
country.
aggressive with me.
Police
Marie,
stations. That's what I want to ask you.
they weren't
Were you
aggressive.
aware of this kind of surveillance program underway of America from China in your administration? Were you aware?
They would have never
Was
done
there
it
a
with
surveillance
me.
balloon flying?
No, there wasn't.
Never?
Never. They would have never done it to me.
Well, this administration, the Biden administration said, oh, this happened, this started under
They
Trump.
did, and then they took it back. They said, oh, you know, they said balloons over Trump. They never did. You know, these balloons are pretty big. You see those balloons. It was amazing that they sent this large balloon right over the middle of our country, by the way, over nuclear areas and other areas. And that you shoot that, if that happens, it would have never happened with me. It would have never happened with me. You should go back to another subject that you mentioned, Cuba. They're building military installations in Cuba, and the fake news media doesn't even talk about it. This is one of the most dangerous things, and nobody's even talking about it. China has to leave immediately, and they will. If I'm president, they will leave.
Let me get back to Taiwan because we haven't touched on this. Should the U.S. help defend Taiwan if it means going to war with China?
Well, I don't want to say it because if I'm in the position of president, I don't want to say what I'm thinking. You know, if I answer that question, it'll put me in a very bad negotiating position. With that being said, Taiwan did take all of our chip business. You know, we used to make our own chips. Now they're made in Taiwan. 90% of the chips
Advanced
are made in Taiwan.
semiconductor chips, 90% are,
No,
are
no,
made
they-
in
they
Taiwan.
have-
If
they
China
make
goes in there,
everything.
they'll be able to turn the world on and off. Isn't that right?
If China takes Taiwan, they will turn the world off, potentially. I mean, potentially. But remember this, Taiwan took, smart, brilliant, They took our business away. We should have stopped them. We should have taxed them. We should have tariffed them.
I want to ask you about these legal issues. You mentioned the indictment. Your team is asking for a postponement of a trial.
Yeah.
When do you want this postponed until?
Well, look, this is all election interference. There's no case here. It comes under the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to have all the records I want. In fact, the New York Times, believe it or not, did an article. Please, 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 Mr. President, may we have the documents? It only applies to me. It doesn't apply to a vice president. It doesn't apply to anybody else. The Presidential Records Act, 1977-78. They did this for and these people, you know, Jack Smith, whatever his name is, whatever his real name is, but Jack Smith is a thug. He's been overturned in the Supreme Court of the United States for horrible things that he did, horrible, horrible things. And I have to ask this also. Biden has probably 30 or 40 times the number of documents and boxes that I had. You don't even hear anything about it. He doesn't want to give them. He has boxes in Chinatown, and he's getting a lot of money at Chinatown. He's getting a lot of money from China. He's got boxes in Chinatown. Why are they in Chinatown? He's got boxes in his garage under his Corvette all over the floor of a garage with a garage door that you can cut open with a paper scissor. I have Mar-a-Lago. I have Secret Service protection, everything else. But even regardless of that, this is the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. What they're doing is election interference. They want to try and damage my name so that I can't win the election. But so far, the people of our country see it. And my numbers have gone up as opposed to down because the people see it. It's a terrible thing. They've weaponized the Department of Justice. Do you know that they've
Do you have any
said,
indication the judge will grant this motion?
I don't know. I know it's a very highly respected judge, a very smart judge, and a very strong judge.
Oh, you appointed her.
I did, and I'm very proud to have appointed her, but she's very smart and very strong and loves our country. I mean, loves our country. We need judges that love our country, so they do the right thing. But I say this, the Presidential Record Act gives you all of the rights to do this. Biden wasn't president. He didn't have the rights. And he's under investigation, not with Jack Smith, but with a very nice person. But he's got boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, great school. They pay him, China pays him $1 million a year. Did you know that? $1 million a year. They pay $50 million or something to Penn.
Well, they also paid Anthony Blinken.
They pay all of his staff. They pay everybody. Look, he is so compromised as a president. He's a crooked guy, and he's totally compromised.
That was good. That was good stuff. Okay, so I'm going to stop that one there because I was able to find it. I found what I was looking for. This is where Trump was. I know there's an article or something out there. Trump opens up about the mistakes he made during the first term. I knew it was out there. Epic news. And they even have it where we can read along and have somebody actually read it out for us. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to present this and stream this. But I mean, we see how bad this is. We see, all of these, just how much they're going after Trump. It's just on some level, it's frustrating. I think the people, the voters, are more frustrated than he is, and he should be the one who is really frustrated about this because it really it comes back on him. But like he says many times, they're not after me, they're after you, and I'm just standing in the way. So we'll see how that lines up and how that works out for them, because every time they go after him, his numbers go up. Now, the people, and they're only targeting the people that already hate him. So they just want to make sure those people that hate him or that have a negative view of Trump, they don't even give him a chance. So they keep throwing these things. Well, he's been trying. They keep going after. There must be something there, right? They think where there's smoke, that there's fire, there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is there isn't. It's not fire. I don't know if it's smog. I don't know what you want to call it. Mist, fog, maybe, but it's not fire. And That's what I found, anyways. But everybody's open to their own view on it. I don't believe if the way that they go after him is just ridiculous. It's really frustrating to see how far they go after him and what they're doing when you have on the other side people who are accusing him of all these different things. They're usually the ones who are doing a lot of the things that they accuse President Trump of. But let's read through this. This is from the Epic Times. Trump opens up about mistakes made during first term. That sounds like draining the swamp to me. I don't know, or at least doing a pretty good job of it. I would say. I think he makes a pretty good argument that we don't hear too much, but that is one of the criticisms that I still hear. Oh, he didn't drain the swamp or anything. And then when you look at how early on he did fire the FBI director, and usually it's like you don't want to do that at that point. And of course, then we're back to the Clintons, where the Secretary of State, she was illegally handling classified government information on a private server. I mean, that is just, if Trump would have done that, imagine what would have happened. So that's a great article. Excellent article. Really enjoyed that. And you can see the complete double standard of what they do with different people part of the swamp and people not part of the swamp. But if you ever wanted to hear Trump's side of draining the swamp, there it is right there. And I'm sure there's an actual video. That was a little hard or a little rough to listen to the robotic voice, but I'm sure the video is out there. And I'll try to find that piece. Will definitely make it in to the book. And what I'm going to do here, I know nobody can see this right now, but I just need to save that as a PDF, because that is good stuff there. Very good stuff. So let me just add that. And the book I'm working on, Kennedy and RFK, it's coming out very, very well. I'm really happy with what I have so far. Still a long ways to go, obviously. Still, I'm on my second notebook now. And there will be a lot of things that will definitely be cut out of it. And I want to do, my philosophy kind of in the past, even with the David Crowley book, I wanted to make it kind of more of a textbook and more for researchers. And I still want to make it for researchers too. But I want to try to take it to the next level, make it a little more entertaining, I want it to flow. It has to flow. But in the end, it has to be a book that I want to read. That's it. If I can accomplish that, then I will accomplish my goal with this book. And hopefully one day, my children and my children's children, family and friends will all read it. And that is it. And people that want to look back on this historical time. This is a very historical time, 2023, 2024, and then seeing what happens. It's going to be a very historical time, and I expect a lot of craziness here, a lot of chaos, but a lot of good things will also happen here. Kirk Cameron's doing a great job there. So, whenever I get kind of burnt out with this politics and stuff like that, I always go back and do more with see what Kirk Cameron is up to, doing great things for our Lord Jesus Christ. So let's see what else I have. It looks like I'm going over a little time. Let's try to keep this to about an hour, but I may go over here just a little bit and see if there's anything else on Twitter that I missed when it comes. I really hate I hate this, and I hate this. I like this, or I like this. That's it. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so got the cluster bombs. That's a good one. A lot of good things that RFK Jr. I mean, the guy is just on fire. He is on fire. Maybe I will finish with that Pence. Just going to Pence and Tucker, just because it's so good. It's so cringe worthy. But okay, so a lot of the stuff was like, "Wow, what is he talking about?" This is all where they're trying to make it out like RFK Jr. hates the Jewish people, et cetera, et cetera. We know that's not true. This rabbi isn't even buying it either. We watched that clip. He wants the New York Post to retract the article. Don't know if that's going to happen, but people get it. I like this comment here too. Copious documentation that yes, US and China have both been developing bioweapons targeted at various genetic groups. We looked at that. We listened to that. Very good stuff, but undeniable. Now, this is another good one, kind of more on the different types of topics here, but we are seeing that Hollywood is going on strike. Did you know that? So here's what RFK Jr. said about 13 hours ago. For capitalism to work, labor must negotiate its fair share of profits and go on strike if necessary. I support the Hollywood actors and writers on strike right now. I know there's been a lot of criticism, a lot of weird things happening with that. He says the Hollywood system is set up to reward execs for maximizing quarterly profits. Workers get the squeeze, be they actors or coders or food service workers. For every Tom Cruise, thousands of workday actors struggle to get by. I haven't heard Kirk Cameron talk about that, but I would be very curious, very interested to hear Kirk Cameron's thoughts on that too. I know it's a little bit off topic, but believe it or not, Kirk Cameron is right on target with a lot of this stuff here. May not be as vocal, but he's right on it. And here's another train derailment. This was interesting. This was posted about 9 hours ago, and RFK Jr. Tweets, another train derailed today in southeast Pennsylvania. The U.S. averages about 1,700 derailments every year, plus 5,800 collisions. Does Japan have this many accidents? Does Europe? Come on, let's modernize our rail system. Come on, man. That is a crazy number. Crazy number. And you know, I'm not one to doubt RFK Jr.'s stats. The guy knows his stats. He knows his numbers. What is this here at the high? Oh, this is a good one. This is a really good quote. How long is this? 55 seconds. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this because I definitely copied this for the book just because it is so good. I didn't know they have like a video version. Come on, cursor, work with me here. I'm going to play this.
That first letter from Khrushchev, he said, we're all on an ark. We can't build another one. The earth is an ark. We need to preserve it. And the question now is, are we willing to do anything like that today? Or are we going to remain stuck in a self-righteous story in which America is categorically good and our opponents are irredeemably evil? If we remain stuck there, so will every other nation. It's not only America that's falling to this simplistic good guy, bad guy thinking. That's the example we've set for everybody in the world. This tribalistic, us versus them thinking is tearing us apart. But when we take the first step toward peace, we will become once again a true world leader, a moral authority. It doesn't take much. It's just the first step. If you like this video and you want to help me become president of the United States, go to Kennedy24.com and donate now. At first letter.
It's good stuff. Really good stuff there. So let's see. I don't know if there's anything else. Oh, gotta play this one. Maybe we'll end here. We always want to end on a happy, positive note, right? So this will be the last thing that I'm going to play here. This one is about 2 minutes, 34 seconds. So we'll finish off right here. Thank you, everyone, for watching, for joining. Really appreciate that. And to God be the glory. So stop playing. Oh, these autoplays just drive me crazy. Here's what he says. I had a ball on a recent hike with the kids in Compton, Inglewood, and South Central Los Angeles. Many of whom have never been in the Santa Monica wilderness before, even though it's not far from their neighborhoods. It's important for our youth to experience nature and to feel the sense of accomplishment that one gets from overcoming challenges like climbing a mountain. Amen to that. Let's watch this.
We're almost at the top of Hollyhock Trail in the Santa Monica Mountain Wilderness.
We are on a wonderful walk of nature, love, determination, opportunity, possibility, and heart attack.
Jackie Sandlin was a principal, very heroic principal of a school in Compton. And Cheryl, when she first came out here, she began volunteering at that school. But Jackie was her inspiration. They have been as close as you can get ever since.
The pandemic really was a definite hindrance. And so it is events like these that actually help us to reconnect, to collaborate, and to just have fun.
Those were all kids from Compton, from Englewood, and South Central Los Angeles. And almost none of them, in my experience, have ever been up to the Santa Monica Mountains, even though it's only a couple miles from their home.
You know, these are the experiences that help fulfill them, to help them see the world, to have opportunities and possibilities. It makes them dream bigger.
You saw how happy they were and how they opened up in a sense of pride and accomplishment at being able to climb a mountain and do something that was difficult.
Oh no! Milk and honey! Oh God!
Victory.
Everybody get around!
It's coming together.
Companionship and the laughter and the storytelling that accompanied the whole thing. It was really pretty wonderful.
Here you go.
John, don't fall backwards. No life insurance.
They had so much fun, and you know, I had a ball.
Okay, everybody, cheeseburger.
Today is a day of authenticity. He did it out of his own care. And I think that's exactly what we need. We need the care, the love, we need the transparency, and we need adults who realize that the future is in our children.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a great place for us to stop here today. So another great one. Even when, you know, I say California is such a beautiful place, and there's a lot of beautiful areas there. And Oakland used to be one of those areas, and it's turned into a very bad area. With that being said, thank you all. God bless you all. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this. I hope that this has been helpful. It's been helpful for me, and I'm going to continue to do this, whether I get one view or no views. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is the information is there. The truth lives. And what we do today will matter tomorrow. Stick to these 10 commandments. This may not be the best interpretation of it, but it is an accurate interpretation. I'm sure you will see. It does make sense. You can compare this to any version of the Bible that you have, and hopefully it stands out. All right. So with that being said, Scotty, take us out.